I am Sayukta Shah. I shall be teaching you secretarial practice for Standard 11th Standard, and I am a lawyer by profession. And I shall be teaching you about secretarial practice. This is a subject which shall deal with regulations, laws, and rules for the secretary, or what importance does a secretary have in a company. All the legal aspects which are required in a company shall be followed and shall be made compulsory to be followed by the secretary. So we shall start with secretarial practice. Now I shall give you a brief introduction about this subject. So this subject is basically about rules and regulations for a secretary to be made followed by a company. So in this we shall be studying various aspects. So what are the various aspects? Let's study about that. I'll give you a brief introduction about the topics which we shall be studying in this chapter. So let's start with that. So first chapter which we shall be studying in this is about secretary. This is an introduction chapter which is given about the secretary. Then next we have about joint stock company. So in joint stock company we shall be studying various company, how a company functions on the basis of a secretary who plays an important role in a company. Then next we have formation of a company. Then we have documents related to formation of a company. Then we have members of a company, directors and key managerial personnel of a company, company meetings 1, company meetings 2, business communication skills of secretary, correspondence with directors, correspondence with banks, and various other chapters. Then these all chapters shall be very important for us to study, and in this entire syllabus, remember that few things have been omitted by the government due to this pandemic, but these are important concepts, so you shall go through these concepts. Even if we don't explain it, you read the concepts whatever are mentioned. So first chapter which we shall be studying is about the secretary. So about the secretary we have firstly origin of secretary, then we have meaning and definition, then features, importance, types of secretary, functions of secretary, qualities of secretary. So these are the various concepts which we shall be studying under the first chapter, that is secretary. So let us see from where we started with the concept of secretary. So let's take a brief introduction. The Indian economy is fast developing and has fastest growing service sector in the world. Various forms of organizations have emerged in the present economic situation. Finance is needed to establish a business, run it, to modernize it, expand it, and diversify it. The role of financial management has become important to the corporate world. Expert individuals having special capabilities and knowledge to grow business have now become important for Indian business scenario. The profession of secretary is one such profession which caters to the changing demand of businessmen and organizations. The subject secretarial practice deals with the origin, importance, features, types, appointment, qualities, qualifications, functions, duties of different types of secretaries, the functioning of a joint stock company, etc. So basically what do we understand? That secretary plays a very important role in the business organization. Since organizations are growing and since there is a development in the organization, so secretary being the one of the important persons playing such role, it is very important to have a secretary for the business and organization or companies. Secretary plays a very important role for the businessman as an individual also and as a company also. So we shall be studying about the origin of secretary. Secretary being a person who was there with the main businessmen since the ancient times, right from the 19th century. A person who used to manage the finance of the people who were of great importance in during those times also is called as a secretary. So let's see the origin of secretary. Until the 19th century, persons involved in daily correspondence and activities related to finance has assumed the title secretary. the Latin word secretrum or secretrus, which means the secrets. The word secretary is derived from the Latin word secretarius, which means someone who works for a person of great importance. So, secretary means a person who works for a person of great importance, or someone who has a lot of work to be done outside. Hence, he appoints a secretary to share his duties and responsibilities. Now, further, uh, in the Roman times, scribe was a professional letter writer or one who maintains confidential records. In ancient Indian history, secretary was referred to as amatya, sachiva, or chitnis, which means a person who does secretarial work. So, what do you mean? A person who does secretarial work or secret works, that is, someone who carries out duties of the person of great importance or a person of businessman or a head of the organization, and he works as a even as a personal secretary, or he may be a person of other great importance. For him, he works, and there may be secretaries appointed for the people who work in central or state government as well. Today, the state and central governments also have secretaries for various departments functioning under the control of ministries in Sachivalya. So next we have origin, former names for secretary, and meaning. So Latin language secretarius, a confidential writer or officer with whom secrets are entrusted by employer. Then Roman Empire scribe, a professional letter writer or one who maintains confidential records. Then next we have Indian history, Amatya Sachiva Chittis, a person who does secretarial work. After this, we have some additional information. In 1870, Sir Isaac Pitman founded a school where students could qualify as professional writers. In 1888, with the invention of typewriters, the role of secretary increased. In an effort to promote professionalism, the National Secretaries Association was created in 1942 in the USA. Later, a special Secretaries Day was created, which would be in the last week of April. This week is known as Administrative Professionals Week. So this was some information about how the concept of secretary has gained so much importance. Next we have meaning and definition. Meaning and definition. There are various definitions of secretary. Some of them are as follows. The Oxford Dictionary defines a secretary as a person whose work is to write for others, especially one who is employed to conduct correspondence, keep records, and to transact various other businesses for another person, or for a society, corporation, or public body. So, what does Oxford Dictionary say about a secretary? He is a person who is appointed to write for the employed persons, that is, to have correspondence firstly, then to keep records. Which records? Records of the meetings, then records of the audit transactions or accounts or other transactions which take place in the day-to-day business, and to transact various other businesses for a person. So he may work either for a person or for a society, for a corporation, or a public body. So secretary can be working for any of the persons. Then next we have, according to Companies Act 2013, Section 224, company secretary or secretary means a company secretary as defined in Clause C of subsection 1 of subsection 2 of the Secretaries Act 1980, who is appointed by a company to perform the function of the company secretary under this act. So, a person who is appointed or who is qualified, who has a professional degree and is qualified as a company secretary or as a secretary for the company, he shall be called as a company secretary under the Companies Act. Then, from the above definitions, it can be stated that secretary is appointed to ensure the smooth functioning of the organization and assist in various functions related to correspondence, meeting, record keeping, and any such administrative work. So, basically, from the definitions, we can understand that secretary is appointed for the smooth functioning of the business organization, in which he assists in the functions related to correspondence of meetings, then record keeping, and various other administrative work. So this is about the secretary. Basic, what is secretary mean. Next, we have features of secretary. We have different features of secretary. What when we say a person is a secretary, what are the different aspects which shall be considered for a person to be called as a secretary? So firstly, he shall be an individual. Always remember, a person is an individual who is appointed as a secretary, and there shall never be a group of people. Even if there is a group of people, in that one person shall only be called as the secretary or the company secretary. Or for a company, others shall be juniors or others shall be the helping hands to the main secretary. Individual. Only an individual alone can be appointed as a secretary. A firm, an institution, or a corporate body cannot be appointed as a secretary. A secretary has to be an individual as per the provisions of the company law, and also due to the skills required to fulfill the duties and responsibilities towards the employers. So, a person who is individual shall be appointed as a secretary. A firm or an institution or a corporate body cannot be appointed as a secretary. A secretary has to follow all the provisions which are stated by the company law, and all skills required which are specified by the company law he shall fulfill, or he shall do all the required responsibilities which are stated by the company law. Next, we have duties. A secretary has to perform routine and administrative duties such as correspondence, conducting meetings, maintaining records, and providing information. Secretary also has to fulfill the day-to-day routine duties related towards the employer or organization such as clerical work, recording, fixing appointments, giving reminders, replying to other employees' queries, etc. These duties vary according to the nature of work of the organization or employer. In recent times, secretary has to ensure legal compliance. So what are the duties of the secretary? Basic duties of the secretary is to perform routine work, whatever routine work is specified by the company. Then secondly, he has to do administrative duties. Administrative duties means he has to carry out correspondence with, maybe with the directors of the company, maybe with the shareholders of the company, maybe other persons, whoever are specified. Then conducting meetings have to be conducted, maintaining records, and providing information. Secretary has to also fulfill the day-to-day routine duties related towards the employer, and also clerical work. So what all work he has to do? Clerical work. Then he has to do recording. During meetings he has to record whatever is happening. Then fixing of appointments, whatever appointments has to be fixed, he shall do that work. Then giving reminders, replying to other employees queries, etc. These are the duties which have to be compulsorily followed by a secretary. Then next we have qualification. Now, what is the qualification which is required? Every secretary must possess certain qualities and qualifications as per the organization. However, a person who is appointed as a secretary in a public or a private limited company needs to have certain prescribed qualifications. According to Companies Act 2013, similarly, a secretary of a government department need to have the qualifications as per the government rules and regulations. So what are the qualifications that a secretary must possess? Qualities and qualifications as per the organization. Then he shall have a proper company secretary's degree, which is prescribed by the government, or which is required by the company law. And secretary of a government department must have a proper qualification as required or as specified by the government rules and regulations. After this, we have appointment. A secretary can be appointed by individuals, professionals, society, corporation, government, public organization, joint stock companies, etc. In other words, a secretary can be a personal or a institutional secretary. So appointment of a secretary can be done by individual. Either it can be an individual who has appointed a person as his personal secretary, or professionals, or society, corporation, government, public organization, joint stock company, etc. So in this case we can see that company secretary or a secretary may be of two types. First is personal secretary for a personal purpose, and second is institutional secretary. So these are the two types of secretary. Next we have paid employee. A secretary is a paid employee of the organization. Secretary is either given a salary or paid an honorarium. Although secretary is a paid employee, yet the secretary holds an important position in the organization. So, secretary can be appointed on salary basis or paid honorarium. Means what? He shall be paid according to the services which he provides to the company. So it can be said that secretary holds a very important position in the organization, because secretary carries out all the legal aspects which are required by the company. Next we have paid after paid employee we have confidential officer. A secretary is a custodian of secret and confidential information of the organization. Secretary is closely connected to the top management and can be involved in policy decisions. So he is a confidential officer. A secretary is a custodian of secret and confidential information of the company. So secretary is closely connected to the top management, hence he knows all the affairs or all the things that are going on in the company, so he can be involved in the policy decision. Next we have representative. A secretary acts as a representative of the organization. Generally, secretaries are of two types, personal and institutional. Secretaries appointed by individuals are known as personal secretaries. These secretaries represent their employers. So, these are two types of secretaries which we have seen earlier, that is personal and institutional. Generally secretaries which are appointed by personal individuals are called personal secretaries, and secretaries those who represent their organization are institutional secretaries. Institutional secretaries are appointed by societies, companies, government departments, and represent their organization. So next we have qualities. A secretary should possess certain qualities so as to conduct the secretarial duties smoothly. The qualities like concentration, intelligence, tact, loyalty, cooperation, courtesy, leadership, orderliness, and knowledge seeker, assistance, smooth and efficient working in the organization. So what are the basic qualities which a secretary shall possess? So a secretary shall possess firstly the qualities such as concentration, intelligence, tact, loyalty, cooperation, courtesy, leadership, orderliness, and knowledge seeker, assistance, smooth and efficient working in the organization. So these are the various features of a secretary. We have seen about the features. Then next is the importance of a secretary, which has been omitted or which won't be asked for your examinations, but for an information or just to know what is the importance of a secretary in an organization, you may go through these concepts also. So next after this we have the next concept is types of secretary. Now what are the different types of secretary? The growth of industrialization and modernization has led to an increase in various types of organizations. Every organization therefore requires one such person on whom the individuals or organizations can entrust the person with responsibilities. The concept of secretary has expanded and is required by almost all types of organizations. Each secretary performs the duties and responsibilities of the organization or employer. So what are the different types of secretaries? Firstly we shall see about that. So in that we have two. Firstly it is personal secretary, and secondly we have institutional secretary. So in personal secretary what we shall be studying, and institutional secretary shall have secretary of a non-profit organization, secretary of a cooperative society, secretary of a joint stock company, secretary of a government department, and other body corporations. So these are the various institutional secretaries which we shall be studying further. Here we shall be studying about personal secretary first. So what do you mean by a personal secretary, and what are the different functions of a personal secretary? Personal secretary or personal assistants is the oldest type of secretary. A personal secretary is one who is appointed by busy individuals like industrialists, businessmen, or professionals to conduct the correspondence and the day-to-day routine duties. So, what does a personal secretary do? A personal secretary is appointed. Firstly, is appointed by industrialists, businessman, or professional to conduct the correspondence and day-to-day routine duties which a person himself cannot do. So, appointment. Busy individuals appoint secretaries to look after the work so as to enable them to concentrate on their primary work. Example: doctors, lawyers, engineers, CA, chartered accountants, actors, politicians, leaders, ministers, etc. So, who all appoint for secretary, who is a personal secretary? The doctors, lawyers, engineers, chartered accountants, actors, politicians, leaders, ministers, etc. So these people generally appoint a secretary, that is a personal secretary. For a person to become personal secretary, what are the different qualifications? Firstly, a personal secretary, as such, has no specific qualifications, yet a graduation degree, good command over language is required. Knowledge of computers and internet skills have now become a necessity. The qualification depends on the requirement of the employer's professional. So, these are the various duties which are required by a personal secretary, that is, qualifications which are required by a personal secretary. What are they? So he shall have a basic graduation degree, good command over language is required, knowledge of computers and internet skills. This is one of the basic and one of the important functions which a function or a qualification which is required by a personal secretary, because working on computer and internet is a need of the day. So the and whatever basic qualifications which are required by a specified person who is appointing the other person as a personal secretary. Next, we have the concept of institutional secretary. Institutional secretary. A secretary appointed by an institution or an organization is called as institutional secretary. Some institutional secretaries are secretary of a non-profit association. A non-profit association means the organizations formed to promote social, education, cultural, art, sports activities with the intention of providing services and not to earn profit. So, firstly, we have institutional secretary. Institutional secretary means a professional secretary which is working for an institution or an organization. So, in that, first we have secretary of a non-profit association. Now, what do you mean by a non-profit association? A organization which is formed with the intention of providing services and not with the intention of creating profits. So what are the different examples of providing the non-profit association? That is to promote social, educational, cultural, art, sports activities which are not with the intention of creating any profit. So this is secretary of a non-profit association. Then next in that we have appointment. A non-profit association is looked after by management committee, which is elected by the members. The secretary must be a full-time or a part-time person working on salary basis or honorarium basis. Example: Rotary Club, Lions Club, Sports Club, cultural clubs, Chamber of Commerce, etc. So the appointment of a non-profit association, it is a full-time or a part-time job, whatever it is, depending upon the salary or honorarium whichever whatever is provided to the secretary. So various examples of a non-profit association are Rotary Club, Lions Club, Sports Club, cultural clubs, Chamber of Commerce, etc. So these are the various aspects. Then next we have qualification. There is no prescribed qualification for this type of secretary. The secretary should be acquainted with the objects and basic functioning of the organization. Knowledge of filing computers, correspondence are the basic requirements of this type of organization. So what is the basic qualification? There is no such kind of basic qualification, but the person who is being appointed as a secretary for a non-profit association, basically he shall possess the duties, or he shall know how to file the documents, or he should know how to operate the computers. He should know the correspondence or the basic requirements whatever are required for this types of organizations. So this was about secretary of a non-profit association.